Hey, I'm Bill, and today I'm going to go over the CAS Manager single connector deployments on Azure for Teradici's PC over IP workstations. So this is the overall architecture of the deployment. It's one of the simpler deployments on Azure. There's nothing too special about it. PC over IP clients will connect the CAS connector over the HTTPS port. After the CAS connector receives this request, it'll contact the workstations, and then the workstations will respond and open a PC over IP connection with the clients on port 4172. Authentication is done through the domain controller here, and as the name suggests in this deployment, the CAS manager is deployed as part of the resource. So it's internal in the subnet, and it doesn't use the external CAS manager as a service offering. We also have a deployment for that, so there's a video about those if you're interested. The actual deployment is as follows. So you first need to ensure the requirements are fulfilled. You only need an active Azure subscription and a PC over IP registration code. You need to fill out the credentials and variables in the TF-vars file. You then need to begin the deployment and wait for everything to finish provisioning. It's usually 30 to 40 minutes. And then you can start configuring CASM and logging in and using the workstations. So this will wrap up the presentation part of the video. I went over the deployment process relatively quickly because in the next part of the video I'm going to give a practical example on a deployment step by step, so hopefully you can follow along and deploy it yourselves. Alright, so I'm here at the Azure portal homepage. I'm going to be using the Azure Cloud Shell in the browser for this deployment. You're welcome to do it locally, but there might be a few extra steps or a few extra dependencies that you might need to install locally. The Azure Cloud Shell is an offering, and it already includes all of the dependencies that you need for this deployment, so there's a much lower chance of errors. To open the Cloud Shell, you can simply just click this button next to the search bar and it'll open up. So as you can see, this is an empty Cloud Shell, there's nothing in it, so let's just begin the deployment from scratch. So first, I'll begin by opening the GitHub repo and cloning the repository. So git clone, and this should clone the Azure deployments repository and give us all the deployment files that we need. And we're doing the CAS Manager single connector. So these are the files in the CAS Manager single connector folder. The one we're interested in is the terraform.tf-vars file, as I stated a bit earlier. This is the one you'll need to fill out with some variables. So the first step is to move the sample variables file into the actual variables file. And now you can open it up with VS Code to edit it. So let's go through these variables. The top few variables describe the workstations that you're going to create. So the count specifies how many of each workstation you want to create. So this first one here is a Linux VM that's not a graphics host, so it's just a standard CentOS Linux machine. This one's the same, but it's Windows. This is a Linux VM, but it is a graphics host, so I actually don't want to deploy these right now, but you're welcome to if you want to. And this is a Windows graphics VM. So a lot of these variables are optional. I'm only going to go through the ones that you need for it to deploy and actually work. I'll actually fill out the prefix to demo. You need to fill out the passwords, so these passwords will be used to authenticate to the machines after they're done deploying. There's a few requirements. You need to have one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, one number, and one special character. So I suggest making it into something secure, which I'll be doing now. This is a PC over IP registration code. If you don't have one already, you can receive one from our sales team. I have one here that I'll be using for the purposes of this demo. And now the last two resources that you need are the application ID and the AAD client secret. So what this is, these are variables used for service principal authentication. So what the service principal is, it's just a managed identity for the purposes of authenticating to Azure for deployments. I already have a few created, but I'll make a new one for this one. So single demo, and you register a service connector, and the application ID will be right here. You then want to create a client secrets. The secret will only be shown when you create the secret, so make sure you keep it in a hidden, safe storage location. So there's one more step to this. You need to configure the permissions for the service principal. And you can do that in subscriptions. If you go to your subscription, access control, and you add role assignments. So there's actually 3 roles you need to add, and you can't do it all at once. So you have to do it 3 times separately. So the first role will be the reader, and you need to add this role to your service principal that you just created. So my one was named single connector demo. Yeah, there it is. So that's reader done. Then you want to add contributor. And finally, you want to add virtual machine contributor. Alright, so that should be all the roles added, and that should be all the variables that you need filled out. So you can just save and close. And now to begin the deployment process, you can run Terraform init. And then run Terraform apply auto approve. So that should begin the Terraform deployment, and this process will take 30 to 40 minutes, so I'll see you when it's done. Alright, I'm back, and it looks like everything finished provisioning. So this is the resource group that's created by the deployment. It contains everything you need for a PC over IP connection here. By default, if you didn't set the resource group will be named CAS Manager single connector followed by some random hex numbers. So look out for that if you want to find it. So now I'll go over the steps to actually assign users to workstations and finally connect to the PC over IP client. So the first step in this is you want to go to the CAS Manager public IP and you want to connect to it. So you want to paste this IP address in and make sure you type HTTPS in. Proceed, it's fine. So type in the password that you set. And make sure all the resources are healthy, so make sure this is healthy. Sometimes it takes a while for it to actually turn healthy after deployment, so this won't work properly until it's actually healthy. The workstations, you can add existing workstations, so I'll add both the Linux and Windows VMs to this. Assign users, CAS admin, and this will be the account that I'll be authenticating with. The credentials will be those that you set inside the tfvars file. Save. So remote workstations is being added. It can take a while, but it's usually over pretty quick. So that should be the users assigned to the workstations. So to actually connect to the workstations, you want to go to the resource group and you want to find the cloud access connector, so it's abbreviated as CAC. And the CAC's public IP, copy that in. And then you put that into the PC over IP client and connect. So this will be CAS admin. Oh, it's CAS admin. And now it'll connect, so you can choose which workstation you want to connect to. I'll choose the Windows. It can sometimes take a while to actually connect. Alright, so it looks like everything's working. The screen's still black, but it'll turn alright after a while. Yep, there it's loaded. So that wraps up about all I wanted to present and demo. Hopefully everything works for you as well, and you can now deploy workstations with Terraform. So the last thing is, if you want to destroy all the resources, you go back into the folder where you ran Terraform apply and run Terraform destroy instead, and that'll just destroy all the resources associated with it. So thanks for watching this presentation, and I'll see you next time.